Hi lovelies and welcome to the Witch's Cookery. Today we're talking about an absolute vital life skill or witch skill, magical power if you want, intuition. What means intuition? How can you use your intuition regardless of your spiritual practice, of your religious affiliation, if you are a witchy poo or a muggle? We will look into why developing your intuition is so important for overall happiness and success, as well as your spell work. Also very important, we will look into when to trust your intuition and when to question it. I'll guide you through some techniques on how to strengthen it and where to use it in everyday life or your witchcraft practice. You know me, or maybe not, in a case Heimbecks, your friendly neighborhood kitchen witch. So we're gonna look at intuition from a secular and scientific point of view. Now, while usually my videos live from B-roll and aesthetically filmed pleasing content, this is more of a relaxed sit down and chat type of video. So grab yourself a snack and a drink, or start folding that laundry, or get your ass out the door and drive to work while we chat about intuition. First of all, what is intuition? It is often described as a feeling or a hunch, the sixth sense, a gut feeling, or that inner voice that whispers to you in some sort of situation and tells you what to do. It's some unexplainable knowing that you get in some situations where you know exactly how to act or what to do intuitively. Or for sure you know that when you meet someone for the first time and you have just some sort of feeling about them, how they might be, that later on might turn out to be correct. Basically the skill to make quick decisions or point out synchronicities without the conscious use of rationality. It's something we feel but cannot quite put our finger on. Now personally I do love me some pro con lists, but when it comes down to it, I will always trust my gut. I'm a very spontaneous person. Some might call that being a big gambler. I call it following my intuition. And so far I feel like I'm winning in life most days, some days. I'm pretty happy overall. And your intuition can really be a magical power that can lead you to great success. But there are also a couple of traps that you need to know and a spot in order to not have it lead you down
the dark path.
Now let's look into the psychological shebang behind it. How does intuition develop? Now with most things, unsurprisingly, it's not quite that magical. It's actually just a reaction of your brain. Our brains are wired to work in patterns. That means they gather information of what you see, what you learn, what you're taught, what you hear, what you feel, and then they code it all in small little packages that make sense to your brain. Some of this information you consciously collect when you learn something, and other things are slipping in there subconsciously without you actually realizing it. And what your brain does when all this information arrives is to store it in different parts of your brain. Short-term memory, long-term memory, conscious mind where you can recall certain knowledge, for example, your name, your home address, stuff like that, and subconscious knowledge and information that's laying below the surface and is not readily accessible to you, but your brain, a smart little computer, can still access it without you actually asking it to. Just because you cannot actively recall something doesn't mean you have forgotten something. It's still swooshing around in there. This is what we describe as tacit knowledge, and intuition is part of tacit knowledge. So if you have to make a decision and you let your intuition take over, your mind jumps over the rational part of sitting down and weighing all the pros and cons and looking at the facts, but your brain will sift through patterns in your subconscious and then present you with an opinion or a solution from your subconscious that consists of previous experience, feelings, emotions, secret desires, and also of course some rational facts. And it does that so quickly that you will be totally unaware that this is happening, and you get the gut feeling. So why is being intuitive so important? Witches or muggles alike? Well, it keeps us healthy, happy, and safe most of the times. First of all, it allows us to make quick decisions in stressful situations. Think of doctors, firefighters, people that need to react quickly without overthinking things, that have to decide in the moment. It's a safety mechanism for us in dangerous situations to intuitively know how to react or act. And then it also allows us to make decisions that are true to ourselves, authentic to ourselves, because they're not purely based on facts or societal norms or should do's and would do's choose, but they also consider your emotions, your desires, and so on. They skip that always rational part and give you often a more true version of what is actually good for you. And science has shown that people who make intuitive decisions are long-term happier with those decisions than those who only make rationalized decisions. Many very successful people around the world always pride themselves on being highly intuitive. Steve Jobs says intuition is more important than intellect. And in some ways it's true. Intuition lets you automatically take steps that are necessary in order to achieve certain things. And now we also know why that is so important for your witchcraft practice. So how do we use our intuition in witchcraft? You probably have heard of intuitive tarot readings, intuitive divination, and that basically means if you read tarot, maybe in order to self-reflect or have some guidance on your life, you take a card, you look at it, and you don't just go by the book and you go by that means this and this and this, but you're able to connect it to your life situation or to a certain life situation. In some ways, it acts as a tool to let your intuition speak to you. Your subconscious mind takes the driver's seat instead of you getting hung up on literal meanings. Now, a lot of spiritual people will also connect intuition to clairvoyance, clairaudience, psychic abilities. Probably not the best person to ask about that because I always err on the side of science, but hey, also never say never. What is not proven wrong might still be right. Practicing your intuition, if you want to get to those skills, probably is not a bad idea, just to be more in tune with feelings, emotions, the subconscious, what is happening around you, being observant, and so on. You might have also stumbled across the term of intuitive witchcraft. It's basically witching off the books. First of all, anyone that is on a witchcraft path knows that being a witch means being highly in tune with yourself. Your thoughts, your faults, your desires, how your mind works, how your thoughts think, and then you will likely do spell work or ritual to improve those, sharpen those, work around those, gain what you want, and knowing yourself is the first step. Intuition is a big part of who you are and who your brain is. In order to make your spells work, you have to know all of those aforementioned things about you. And intuition is a big part of spell work, and if you don't master it at a certain level, it doesn't matter how many herbs you put in a jar or how many spell candles you burn, it will never work. Of course, there are also other skills and factors that go into making spell work successful. So this video will be part of a mini series about 3 skills that every witch has to have. Watch this space, coming soon. Intuition will guide you to make your own spells and rituals that are important at that moment in your life for your trajectory. You will not get as hung up on which herbs to use, which colors are correct, because you trust the outside authority more than your own feelings of what will work for you, what affects you. And I feel I do say that in all of my videos, but you have to do you, especially as a witch. There are no real rules, so you have to intuitively know what is right for you. The information is inside you, not outside you. There's inspiration outside you that you can definitely learn and then take from him, because intuition, as we know, is shaped from experience, from learning, from outside information. But in order to make that intrinsically yours and let it be your inner voice and your inner guide, you have to let it do the work inside of you. And then also let it speak to you so it can guide you where you need to be. You can read a lot in books about experiences of other people, but own experiences, own emotions, own feelings will always overrule that in your pattern formation in your brain. Intuition can really open doors for you, help you choose what's right, help you with divine timing, if this is what you want to call it. Trusting your gut can be scary because sometimes your gut feeling is right and sometimes it's wrong. So what can weaken your intuition, can suppress your intuition, or even make it faulty? So since intuition comes from previous gathered experience and knowledge, you can also have a wrong intuition about something or someone based on a previous subjective perception. Maybe you meet someone for the first time and they physically just remind you so much of that one person that you really despised in high school. And then your intuition might jump in and say like, hey, careful, you don't like that person, even though they might be the sweetest person alive. You might find it out later and become BFFs. So the key, as with everything in life, is to constantly reflect, self-reflect, learn from faulty or wrong intuition. Tacit knowledge is gained by direct experience, but is also limited to that. And it's unreflected knowledge. So when you come across those sorts of situations where your gut feeling is off, I recommend shadow work. Or to say it in the words of Tiffany Aching, first thoughts, second thoughts, and third thoughts are so important. If you don't know Terry Pratchett, then you're missing out on life. You're reading the wrong books, I'm sorry. I have to reiterate it again. Read it, you will love it. A reason why your intuition might be weak or you don't dare to use your intuitive gut feelings as often might be because of upbringing or society. Because our intuitive wishes, needs, and so on might not always go hand in hand with societal norms or what others expect of us. Our society very much focuses on rationality, and so your intuition might be squelched from early on, and you might be convinced that there's an outside authority that has to know better because you hear it over and over again than your own gut feeling. And then we learn that we shouldn't trust our gut feeling, that what other people say is the correct way, and then we just lose the ability to react intuitively in some ways. And with that, we also unlearn to listen to the holistic picture that our heart and mind and body gives us. Or let's say you're a student, you're in law school, you're almost finished, but your gut tells you to stop studying that and start your visionary business of knitting sweaters from ecological alpaca wool. And rationally, you know that probably if you finished your law studies and became a lawyer, you would have a very good life, would look good on paper, you're so close, and everyone else will tell you to do that first, but you just know that now is the time to jump into something else. And there you have that struggle between expectations, societal norms, and intuitive feelings that might actually guide you down a path that leads you to great happiness. And who knows, maybe one day you're on the cover of Forbes magazine with your knitted creations. Dream big. Another way that can hinder your intuition is low self-esteem and your own decision making. Stemming from similar things, you maybe have been growing up with people that were unsupportive of your gut feelings, of your ideas. It might come from you have never dared to really make intuitive decisions, and now you don't have to practice. And as with every skill, practice makes perfect. And another interesting, but for a lot of people unfortunate one, depression can somewhat dampen your intuition. Research has shown that people suffering from depression have a harder time making certain judgments or decisions, especially when those have to be fast and adaptive. If you are depressed, your mind goes into tunnel vision. It doesn't have the ability anymore to see so many options, to pull that many patterns from everywhere. And it tends to circle around the same type of information. It's really hard for your brain to then spontaneously give you like a good input. You're trapped in a state of rumination, which basically means that you constantly overthink causes and consequences of certain actions, and that lets very little space for intuition. And even when and if you have taken a decision, you're much more likely to question it over and over. And a lot of clinically depressed people also show lower levels of self-esteem and self-confidence in their decision making. This is not only true for clinical depression, there are also other mental illnesses that can impact that, and it might even be true for people whose brain works outside the neurotypical standards. But don't worry, as always, knowledge is power. If you know what the issue is, that your intuition might be not working in the standard way, or you might have a harder time with some things. If you know the cause, you can look for a solution. Might have to work on a couple of other steps first, and then you can go into this intuitive work. Now let's see, are there ways to train your intuition? Can you develop your intuition? Yes, there are many. Listen to your body. We are so trained to only listen to our mind, but our body is actually a great little giveaway of what we're actually feeling, what our brain wants to tell us. We see that in psychosomatic illnesses, but we also see that when we are confronted with a situation where we would have to make a decision. Are you maybe leaning a little bit back? Is your heart beating fast? All these are signs that your body is basically screaming at you. Your intuition is screaming at you, don't do it! It will end not well. You started a new job and suddenly you start to get headaches all the time. Ask yourself, is that maybe my intuition speaking to me that this is not the right environment alignment for me. This is not the right path. Things like that. And also find out, how does your intuition communicate with you? Is it mainly through how your body reacts? Is it through thoughts that you have, physical feelings, or is it maybe even through flashes of visuals? That will be different from person to person, and knowing your cues and knowing how your brain communicates is super important to pick up on that. To master a skill, you have to repeat it often. So experiment. Make the conscious decision to trust your gut and just follow what that feeling tells you. Be spontaneous once in a while and start with small little things that don't have a huge impact on your life. The only way to learn to trust your gut is trial and error. The more positive experience you will have with that, the more self-esteem you will build, the more confident you will get. Small decisions will prepare you for big decisions. Also communicate intuitively. Say what you mean. If the next time someone asks you a favor and you really intuitively want to say no because you just don't feel it, but you kind of feel obliged to say yes because of, that's what you do. Say no and then see how that pans out for you. Probably in a very good and stress relieving way. And also when you trust your gut and it doesn't work out, it is super helpful to keep track. Journal. Write down certain feelings, hunches that you had about things throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, and then see if later on you were actually right. Can you see synchronicities? And then if you can see that in some things your intuition was not quite on point, you can then dive into shadow work. As I said before, our experiences shape our intuitive reaction. So maybe you have to first learn to make a better distinction between first emotion and actual intuition, or you have to recognize some thought patterns in your head that are unproductive due to past experiences and connections that you have made. I, by the way, have a video on shadow work and how to do that too. In terms of witchcraft, you can do that with your book of shadow, where when you try out a certain spell or ritual, you write down what you intuitively did and then you can see if it came to fruition. It is also a great way to improve your spell work. Of course, intuition can kick in very stressful situations, but they are then very tailored to that certain situation. If you in general want to become more intuitive in your way of life, it is super important to find moments of rest, to calm your mind, to give it a break. That can be through meditation or a walk in nature or whatever else just shuts out all those everyday stress and hassle and whatnot, where you can let your mind wander inside and really ask your heart what it wants, because it increases awareness for your own feelings and your own thoughts, and then it can happen that you suddenly get an inspiration. This also works with distraction through art, sports, leisure, something that gets you out of the tunnel vision, puts your mind for a second in a different space. Can also be achieved by sleeping, by the way. I do have that a lot, that in the evenings I lay in bed and I think, for example, about a video idea for my next video and I just cannot come up with something. And then I sleep and the next morning I get up, I make my coffee and suddenly idea in my head, like a genius, like, wow, I should do this. Your brain also does things when you're not aware of it. So mindfully take that time. And on the topic of being mindful, being observant and mindful is also very important, because you want to build pattern in your mind. You want to have a big battery of information available to your brain to fuel you with amazing intuitive thoughts and feelings and guidance. So in order to not only trust that your mind subconsciously puts everything there, you can also use awareness exercises, mindfulness exercises to actually put stuff there. And it's as simple as people watching in a cafe, listening in on conversations. I'm the biggest sucker for other people's gossip that I will never see again. I have no idea how they're called, but I'll be sitting there with my coffee being like, oh, so who cheated on who? Ears like this and completely wrapped up into other people's drama. It's embarrassing. I'm also someone that really likes to read through messy comment sections on the internet. The hobbies I have. So yeah, consciously go out and really involve all your senses, building patterns and then pattern recognition. That's what it's all about. Now, it also helps if you have a supportive network around you of people that let you trust your gut, that let you live your life, make your decisions, be intuitive in who you are, what you want, and that don't squelch that, just to build your self-confidence in your own abilities, in your own feelings about your life. It's also important is to mindfully let go of negative or unhelpful emotions. Obviously, negative emotions are sometimes necessary, but I mean unproductive emotions, like prolonged anger or resent, for example. In those emotional stages, your brain is not quite capable of pulling all the register. Very similar to what I said about depression before. So your intuition might be off if you are in a state of upset, for example. Always important to sort out those situations first or as quick as you can to free your mind to actually make decisions that are good for you. To tune into your intuition is to watch your dreams, if you can remember your dreams. What dreams basically are is what your brain processes of your emotions, feelings, what happened throughout the day. It's working through those things and putting it in a nice little movie for you, or a strange little movie, or a sexy little movie. A real good dream tonight. Anyway, that's basically your subconscious doing some visual artwork up there. The subconscious is the driver. Your conscious is the car. So the more you can decode your subconscious, the better you get to know yourself. Again, very important in order to be a empowered witch or human being in general. So writing your dreams down and trying to see what the message in there might be or what is happening up there, seeing what your subconscious is playing with is a good idea too. Dream journaling. And last but not least, use tools or ask for guidance when it comes to your intuition. I talked about tarot cards before that you can use as a tool to tap into that. So you don't have to actively wait for that spontaneous Geistesblitz. And of course, if you believe in a higher instance, in God, in angels, spirit guides, whatever, you can also use them as mediums to ask or to pray for some guidance, for some divine inspiration. Okay, kids, that's all I have for today. Hope you enjoyed this little chat on intuition. Let us know what you use your intuition for, how you strengthen and develop your intuition, or how you practice intuitive witchcraft. And I'm gonna see you next week. Goodbye.